Hey everybody, it's Melanie in education. I wanted to take just a couple minutes and talk to you guys a little bit about the Donna Wright competency model. HCA is moving toward this over the next year or so for all of their hospitals. So this will be the first year that we're using it at Horizon. So the idea behind the competency model for Donna Wright is that the nursing environment is always changing, and we know that better than anybody else. But our annual competencies tend to stay the same. So our competencies should reflect the fact that our practice is changing frequently. And then nurses who prove competency shouldn't be required to have further education on the topic. And the best example for this is the nurse who has been at the hospital for the last 20 years and given blood most of the days that they work and never had an issue or a complication that needs to do a module on blood administration. So that nurse should be able to prove that they're competent to give blood and not receive any further education. And that competency can be proven in many ways, and that includes quality data. So examples are that we have not had a CAUTI or a CLABSI in several years, and that we can prove that we're effectively managing these patients because we're not having CAUTIs and CLABSIs, so that we don't need education on those topics. Options for proving competencies should be given. So adult learners prefer to choose their method of education. Real good example of that is our AHA. When we moved to the VAM process for an online module, there were a lot of people who really didn't like it and preferred to have in-person classes. But there was a good portion of people who really appreciated having the flexibility to not have to come in for a whole day and to be able to do it on their own via the internet whenever they wanted to. So it just depends on what kind of learner you are, and we should be able to give options for you to choose what's right for you. So, and the last piece of this is that our annual competencies should be chosen by our bedside nurses. So those of you that are working every day on the unit should be the ones that choose what you should be doing for competencies this year. The 4 things we want to look at when we're deciding what competencies are most appropriate for this year are what are new procedures, policies, equipment, or initiatives that affect your job. What are the changes in procedures, policies, equipment, and initiatives that affect your job? What are the high-risk aspects of your job? Now, high risk is anything that could cause harm or legal action to someone. And what are the problematic aspects of this job? So those are things that every time you have to do that, you run into a problem. And then annual competencies should be less than 8, and our goal is less than 5. So I'm just going to turn the page. That's the meat and bones of the Donna Wright method. So what we have here is the ongoing competency worksheet. So this is a good place to put all your ideas down and kind of go in order and see which boxes they fit in and, assign a priority essentially. So the first box is new, the next one is changing, the next one is high risk, and the one at the bottom is problematic. So we could take this list and write down all our competencies, put them in the correct boxes, and then decide which ones get the most priority. This is an example of a competency passport that we're using on another unit. So this is the one for the ICU, just to give you guys an example of what it could look like. So the end-tidal CO2 monitoring here can be completed. It needs to have the end-tidal CO2 health stream and then a return demonstration or evidence of daily work of that CO2 monitoring. And what that return demonstration and evidence of daily work means is that either you have a patient who's on carbon dioxide monitoring and you have an approved validator, which could be your manager, your supervisor, a coworker who's been chosen to be a validator and checked off, that you pull them into the room and you say, here, I'm doing this right now. Can you look at me, watch me do it, and prove that I'm competent to do this? The other option is return demonstration. So this is a typical event where an educator or a member of leadership comes along and says, here's the setup. Do you have 10 minutes to set up this ETCO2 monitor and show me how you would use it on a real patient and demonstrate? So those are the options to complete this competency for the ICU. So the methods that we can use for verifying competency include tests and exams, which you guys are used to from HealthStream. return demonstration, which what we talked about here was more like a skills fair type event, or skills on the fly where it's not on a real patient. And then evidence of daily work is where you're performing this skill in your daily work for your role. Case studies are where you go through a case study and make decisions along the way to prove that you understand how you could take care of a real patient. And then exemplars are essentially a written example of how this happened in real life and how it was handled and what you did. Peer review is a peer-to-peer reading your assessment, and that peer can be anybody that sees you do your job. And that peer review should be in a safe format, meaning that it's safe for that person to give feedback and that everybody is on the same page, that this is not, you're not being penalized, that this is just a conversation and we're talking about the way this could be done. And then discussion or reflection groups could be a group that gets together and talks about a mock event or talk about a complicated procedure, but you're all sitting in the same room having a discussion about that topic. So these are all methods of verification that could be on this passport on this side. So whatever women's chooses to be a competencies will be on this side, and then our verification methods will be here. So what we're asking from you as a unit today is to go back to the unit and to go decide what you want to be your competencies. So there will be something like this set up in your break rooms or on your unit somewhere, but they will be in the form of large posted paper on the wall, and you'll have a new, a changing, a high risk, and a problematic poster. And what we'd like for you guys to do is write down things that you think about that happen on a daily basis that fit into any one of these categories that should be competencies for this year. And then what we're going to do is at the end of 2 weeks, we're going to pull down those posters and we're going to get together and make some decisions about what competencies need to be happening for these units. Now, NICU and women's will have separate sheets, so make sure that you write it on your appropriate sheet for your unit. I forgot a couple of these methods, so I was going to bring you back here just for a second. Presentations, and this is your typical classroom type environment. And then mock events, which you guys are familiar with, that we've been doing here on your units pretty regular. And then QI monitors are those monitors that we talked about in the beginning for, if we have not had any issues with that in the last several years, then it's not something we should choose. But maybe it's something that we are having an issue with and the QI says so, that we can show through QI that we're getting better at that process as well. We could use that for a method of verification. But what we really want to focus on truly is the competencies that we need to focus on for women's and for NICU. And then when we're done making those decisions, then we can move on to method of verification. So if you guys have any questions, please reach out to me. My number is 615-477-3033 or Melanie Hatch in your email. Thank you.